Good morning, my friends. Happy Tuesday. Thank you for joining me here today. My usual little weather report. The sun is out. I was talking to my mum this morning over in England because I'm still here in San Diego about, let me think, it's 11, 10, 9, 8, 10, about 3 hours ago, 3.5 hours ago, something like that. And there was no sun. It was a very strange morning. And now the sun's come out and it's going to be hot. It's also going to be extremely hot in Europe at the weekend, potentially hotter than here. Weird, isn't it? Anyway, today's subject, that's why I wanted a light start. The heat, the sunshine. Today's subject is serious. Okay, so let me give you some background. Before I do any of that, let me tell you who I am and where you are. You are at My Home Biz Tips, brought to you by phdinfollowup. My Home Biz Tips is tips, things that will help you if you run a business from home or a small business. If you're an affiliate marketer, an MLMer, a coach, insurance, real estate, anything that you would not necessarily be doing for somebody else. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're making your own way through life, this is a place where you can find empowerment and support and ideas that will help you. Okay, that's our plan, to inspire, empower, and support home-based business owners. Brought to you, as I said, by phdinfollowup, which is the main company we've been teaching businesses better follow-up techniques, practices, tools for over 10 years. So my name is Andrea Kuchin. You can find out all about me at phdinfollowup.com, Andrea Kuchin. If you have questions or comments, you can email me at andrea@phdinfollowup.com. You can always text or call me at 858-252-1190. And to continue the conversation, you can join our Facebook group, PhD in Follow-up. Just look it up. Facebook group, PhD in Follow-up. It's about getting more loyal customers and referrals if you're a very busy and overwhelmed business owner, because getting more business is the most important thing in your business. But if you're spending all your business hours doing that, you're not getting anything else done, which means you're not getting paid to do anything. So our job is to help you resolve those issues. Now, one of the big issues that we face in our businesses and in trying to sell our services, promote our services, close a client, enroll a client, bring someone in to our community, our paid community, whatever expression it is you use, and they're all valid. They all mean the same thing, ultimately. It's just like my example that I give so often, the 2-year-old eating broccoli. It's exactly the same process. You know the 2-year-old needs to eat broccoli. The 2-year-old probably doesn't want to because it's green and it's a vegetable. And there's this sort of society thing about how little kids don't like vegetables. So now all little kids don't like vegetables. So it's the conversation you have that eventually persuades that 2-year-old to go, okay, I'll eat the broccoli, which does happen. We've all done it, or something similar. Teenagers to do their homework, or tidy their rooms, or put their stinky trainers outside. I don't know, whatever it is, you know, your spouse to get married to you in the first place, go on holiday somewhere different from where they wanted to go. It's all a conversation about you persuading someone else that your viewpoint has merit. And the only difference in a sales conversation is that you're going to end up getting money in exchange for something. That's the only difference. Whatever you're exchanging has value. Money is just another one of those things. A kid who's eaten some broccoli, or a clean bedroom for a teenager, whatever it is, it's the same. It's an exchange that has value to you. Now, when you're having those conversations with people, you're going to find obstacles that come up, right? All sorts of things. Often, I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I wouldn't know how to do that. I don't think that's important enough. Whatever it is, I have to ask my husband, wife, business partner, whatever it is. In other words, defer to somebody else. All those kind of things come up all the time. And if you're not prepared for them, you don't know how to handle them. But most importantly, you need to figure out why they're coming up. Are they real? What is it that's really going on? Because in my years of experience having these conversations and helping other people resolve the conversations, learning from my mentors what's happening in the conversation, and then teaching that to my students and my team, at the bottom of every objection is fear. And fear has different ways of showing itself. Usually, the fear is about two different things. First of all, can this thing be done? Can this MLM succeed? Can this coaching program help me? Can this investment platform really help me make money? Whatever it is, does the thing work? Right? Now, there's always plenty of evidence to show that it can, right? So that's the first question. There's the fear of the unknown idea. It's the same with a marriage. You know, everyone supposedly gets cold feet as they get to the altar or the registry office, and they suddenly think, is this a good idea after all? There's no evidence to suggest it isn't, any more than there's any evidence to suggest there is. Sure, lots of marriages end in divorce, but lots don't. And divorce is a choice. Marriage is a choice, right? You decide how you want your future to be. So when you've decided you're going to get married, it makes no sense after you've spent a fortune on getting it all organized for you to suddenly change your mind. It's just your fear coming up suddenly and going, is this going to work? Could this possibly work? Now, the second part of that question is, can I make it work? Am I good enough to do this? Am I capable? And that's where the big fear is. And it's the same fear that is probably going through your own mind in relation to, here's the phone, I need to pick it up, and I need to call somebody and have that conversation with them. Or I've got a meeting in 10 minutes, it's a sales call, what am I going to do? Or I'm going to a networking event, how am I going to introduce myself to people? Are they even going to want to hear what I've got to say? Who's going to want to hear what I've got to say? I've only just started in this thing. I don't have any clients yet. I don't have any customers yet. I've got no success to prove to myself or anybody else that I can do this. So can I? Really? That's where the fear comes from. Now, my family has a tradition in San Diego, because we've been living in San Diego a very long time, although neither I nor my husband are originally from here, only my daughter. And when we are in San Diego in the summer, which again isn't always, it's not often, not always, we go to the county fair on the 4th of July, which also happens to be my birthday. And we do some rides. And there's one particular ride that I always love to do. It's called, I think it's called the ski lift. And you start on the ground and this big bench comes up behind you and swoops you up. And then a bar comes down over you. And then you get lifted up. And then you travel right the way across the fair, across the stands, the stalls, across where the racetrack is. And you come down on the other side of the fair. and you come down, and then you have to throw the bar up and jump off and get out of the way before the bench seat you were sitting on swoops around the curve and goes back up in the opposite direction. This thing never stops. It travels slowly. It never stops. You have to move. You have to get yourself seated and the bar down while it's traveling forward. You have to jump out of the way, get the bar up, move out of the way while it's traveling round. On top of that, it goes way higher than street lamps or buildings. It goes very, very high. It goes as high as the palm trees, the tops of the palm trees. It's frighteningly high. There's the clue. So I'm at the fair, and my daughter wants to go on a ride. And we've often been at the fair with friends, but not always. This is the first time that my slightly self-conscious, almost 16-year-old daughter is on her own as a self-conscious teenager. And she doesn't want to do a ride by herself, which surprised me because most of them are organized in pairs, which would mean she'd be sitting close to someone she didn't know. And she was not willing to have that experience. There was something frightening her about it. And eventually we found some rides where there were long rows of people and she could sit separated, from other people, or everyone was random, so it didn't really matter whether she knew the people or not. She wasn't forced into a space with one total stranger, which I understood. But why do we do fair rides? What do they do for us? They frighten us to death for a few minutes, and we pay for the privilege. Why do we do that? Well, there's something inside us that likes to be frightened. Now, my husband and I are not fans of horror films. My daughter is much more into horror than we are. She's been watching Stranger Things ever since it came out, so we've followed it with her. I wouldn't have chosen to watch that had it not been for her, and my husband definitely wouldn't. In fact, he initially said he didn't want to watch it. So what is it that is in us human beings that makes us enjoy being frightened? We choose to be frightened. Now, when you're watching a horror movie or something like that, you're in control completely, and you're also totally safe. But when you're on a ride in a fairground, you're neither in control nor, arguably, totally safe. I mean, you are really, but there have been accidents, so something could go wrong. You could certainly drop something, lose something, drop something that hurts someone else. So it's not completely safe. And if you do fall, if it does crash, you're risking your body. You could suffer injury, potentially even death. And yet we spend a fortune on having that experience, putting us in a place where we are actually in danger of our lives, and we pay for the privilege because we enjoy the thrill. So why do we keep ourselves in a state of fear in our business? Is it because somehow in the back of our minds is the idea that it's actually okay to be terrified? And when you're terrified, you just sit and hang on, and that's okay. You don't have to move. You just sit and hang on, and eventually the ride will be over. But that's not a workable solution in business, The workable solution in business is to do whatever it is that you're frightened of. So let's leave the crippling feeling that fear gives us. Let's leave that in the fairground, right? Or let's leave it on the sofa with the horror movies. Let's leave that there. This, I'm in danger and the best thing I can do is hang on. That works in that context. And let's not enjoy the feeling of being afraid. Because the feeling of being afraid obviously has some level of enjoyment, because otherwise we wouldn't pay for the privilege, would we? We wouldn't spend a fortune on making horror movies. And we wouldn't celebrate Halloween if we didn't like on some level to be frightened. And that is the thing that I picked up at the fair that I've never thought about before in the context of running a business. I've known that even little children like to be frightened. The higher up you lift them, the more they squeak with delight because they're terrified, because they're that high up, right? They love to do things that frighten them. Thank goodness, because otherwise we'd never learn to walk, would we? But there's something there that makes it okay to be frightened, which we're taking into our businesses thinking it's okay to be frightened and do nothing. But in business, it's not. Absolutely not. So in business, we have to handle our fear in a completely different way. The solution is not to hang on and do nothing else. The solution is the opposite. It's to open up and stretch and reach and step off the ride. That's how we grow. Does that make any kind of sense to anybody? Looking to see if there's, can't see comments. I can only see. Okay. Is there something there inside our thinking process that has made it okay for us to be too frightened in our businesses to move? I think there possibly is. And I think it's connected to the fact that we've become used to the idea that being frightened can be fun and it's okay. And all you have to do is cling on for dear life, literally. And in business, that doesn't work. So when you're in your business, when you're at your desk, do not adopt the fairground mentality of being frightened is totally okay and it's fun, because it isn't going to get you anywhere. Switch that off and do whatever it is. Here's your phone. You've got to make that call. And a million things go through your head as to why you don't want to do that. In fact, they don't. What goes through your head is, oh, if I've just realized I've got to do this instead, or, oh, I'm not quite ready for that. I've got to do this first. And, oh, I need to organize that first. And I've just got to make sure I've got that piece of paper organized. And, oh, I've just realized I'm actually really thirsty. And the day goes by and it didn't get done. So it's insidious. It hides your fear and your unwillingness to do things that you think are challenging because you're frightened of them, because your fear told you you were, which actually isn't real. Just like your fear doesn't really tell you when you get to the altar that you need to turn and run. It doesn't. It's a mechanism. It's a security mechanism, which we needed when we were dealing with saber-toothed tigers and stuff like that. Not relevant anymore. And the only way you're going to get rid of it is by talking to yourself. And if you have to do it out loud, that's fine. In fact, I found that that works quite well because I forget that it's me talking. If that makes sense. Because I'm hearing voices all the time and I'm listening to podcasts and stuff all the time. And so I'm used to hearing a voice that says, is this really fear? Is this really what you want to do? Is that client really worth wasting? Wouldn't it be much more fun to celebrate the success of closing that? Or wouldn't it be much more fun to do that live stream or whatever it is? Go to that networking event online, whatever it is. Okay? Because yes, it would be. So if that's the solution, do that. Talk yourself through it as if you were helping somebody else. Because one thing I do know for sure is that it's always easier somehow to try and help someone else than it is to help yourself. There, again, these strange patterns in our minds that make us think that it's good to help others and selfish to help ourselves. Again, that's not valid. So if it takes talking, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I apologize. If it takes talking yourself through, literally talking yourself off the ledge, as they say, talking over your fear or your dislike of an unpleasant situation, whatever it is, if that's what it takes, do that. It might seem silly. It actually is quite comforting when you get used to it. Also because it's effective. Do that. But this idea that it's okay to be frightened and it's normal and all I have to do is hold on, leave that in the fairground. It's a different environment. In your business, step up. Talk yourself through whatever it is. And if you don't want to talk yourself through it, call me. I'll talk you through it. Call me there, 858-252-1190. Or send me a text message and I'll call you back. And I'll talk you through it. Seriously, you can take me up on that. Honestly. We'll find out what it is that's stopping you and we'll get you to do it. Because the other important thing is when you've done it once, it's easier. And my daughter figured that out at the fair too. The idea of sitting next to a total stranger was no longer frightening by the end of it. Okay? That's it for today. That's what fear is about. And it's become acceptable in life, which is not acceptable in business. So separate the two. Talk yourself through it or call me and I'll talk you through it. So here I am sharing some ideas that have been mulling around in my head for a few days because I spotted something which I think can be useful. And that's what I do. To inspire you, to empower you, and to support you in running your home businesses. And that's it for today. I look forward to seeing you here again next week. And I hope this was of value to you. I found it valuable myself, and I hope it was of value to you. All feedback, and I mean all feedback, really gratefully appreciated. Okay then, my friends, I will toddle off and leave you now. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye-bye.